Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you kindly for stopping by. I'm always grateful for that. Let me start by quoting David Davis in an article in The Independent. Says he's ignoring, well, he didn't say it, but the headline says it, ignoring plummeting UK currency and signals a hard Brexit stronger than ever. And this goes back to the point I was making over the weekend, where I was saying that sterling pound has become a prisoner of the hard-edged rhetoric. I like this quote from JP Morgan. We had a very smart economist at JP Morgan ask me the following question. How do you have capitalism without any cost of capital? And therein lies the problem. My piece over the weekend was about how the Falcon could not hear the Falconer. And I was saying that the Bank of England and Carney were losing control of the narrative, and so were African policymakers, actually. The Fed, I think, will hike a quarter point in December. David Inglis, look at this. Looking at Nomura's forecasts on the Mexican peso, it's a straddle strategy time. They've got a Trump win pushing the peso to 26, a Clinton win seeing it strengthen to 17.5. I saw this headline in The Independent. I thought, how awful. Nothing can really be said. Aradhana Samdariya, a teenage girl, died after 68-day religious fast to bring family luck. What kind of luck is that? You lose your daughter. The field of vision is comparable for me to the terrain of an archaeological dig. To see is to be on guard, to wait for what emerges from the background, without any name, without any particular interest. What was silent will speak. What is closed will open and will take on a voice. Let me then put up a link for a search on Paul Virilio, because he really has made a big impact on me, that's for certain. The reconciliation of nothing and reality and the suspension of time and space by high velocities replace the exoticism of journeys with the vast expanse of emptiness, he says. Have a think about that. I tend to read him and then suddenly go back to him. He really is a powerful thinker. Ethiopia losing appeal for foreign investors as the tax spread. Ethiopia's attraction as a favorite new destination for foreign investors is fast dissipating as businesses owned by Nigerian billionaire Aliko Dangote and Dutch flower growers come under attack in growing political unrest. The government declared a 6-month state of emergency Sunday to deal with protests by ethnic Oromo and Amhara communities that began 11 months ago after dispossession of their land, political marginalization and state repression. The security forces have killed about 700 people during the demonstrations, according to the Association for Human Rights in Ethiopia. The government says the attacks are being orchestrated by foreign elements. Last year, investors had been touting Ethiopia as a hot new investment destination, lauding the way the government has ramped up infrastructure spending and embraced foreign capital to propel economic growth at the fastest pace on the continent. That appeal is losing its luster. The issues that need to be resolved are big, and investors will be wary as whether the current government will be able to address them. The longer it takes for the necessary reforms to be made, the more fragile the state will become, and the higher the risk to investors. I think this is an inflection point, and the regime must be hoping for that Kapucinski moment. But I just think repression no longer looks like an optimal regime survival strategy. Richard Kapucinski said, "If the crowd disperses, goes home, does not reassemble, we say the revolution is over." And then, of course, the revolutionary contingent attains its ideal form, not in the place of production, but in the street. And that's ironical, of course, because Ethiopia has been the poster child of the production story in Africa. Look at this beautiful sunset in Addis Ababa tonight. This was a few days ago. From Quartz Africa, Ethiopia's reputation for stability has been shattered by an escalating series of protests in Oromia and Amhara regions. This is Maplecroft Verisk. The government has responded with a characteristically heavy-handed response, which has often only served to escalate the situation. Martina Stevis, who writes for the Wall Street Journal, I'd be very concerned if Ethiopia uses its allegations against Eritrea to attack it again. Ethiopia says Eritrea is behind the uprisings. If that is the case, tiny Eritrea proves itself a worthy match for massive Ethiopia yet again. So clearly a fragile, fast-moving, fluid situation there, and I think the government's going to go repression squared, but I'm not sure it's going to work. The contrast between the strident US rhetoric against Russia and the studied indifference on the part of Ankara makes a hugely significant fault line in the Syrian war. With Syrian forces having entered the eastern parts of Aleppo, the rebels are virtually trapped with all supply lines cut. Moscow has said it is open to the idea, mooted by the UN, to evacuate the rebels from Aleppo and end the fighting. If the plan takes off, Turkey has a key role to play on the ground. This is one thing. This is Badr Kuma. Again, Russia has virtually imposed a no-fly zone over Syria with its latest deployments of advanced missile defense systems. The Russian Defense Ministry openly warned on Thursday that foreign aircraft and missiles risk being shot down, since Russian personnel deployed in Syria cannot be endangered. This is why any missile or airstrikes on the territory under control of the Syrian government will create an obvious threat for Russian military. The crews on duty will hardly have the time to calculate the missile's flight path or try to find out their nationality, Russian spokesman General Igor Konashenko said in a hard-hitting remark. Now have a look at these photographs. This is Vladimir Putin and Recep Tayyip Erdogan burying the hatchet in their Istanbul meeting. I concluded by saying Erdogan has pivoted to Vladimir. And here, have a look. He went all the way out to wave goodbye to Vladimir. And Joyce Karam is tweeting in the West as well. And finally, one final one of them, meeting with the Prime Minister to revive the pipeline deal. It's been an extraordinary volte-face and rapprochement between the two, given that Turkey blew one of the Russian planes out of the sky not too long ago. Then we've discussed all those events which have led to this point. International markets, let's have a look at the currency markets. Euro dollar 111.07, dollar index pushing on 97 plus, Japanese yen 103.95, Swiss franc 0.9833, the pound down again 122.84. And really it doesn't seem to have a floor right now. Aussie 0.7559, India rupee 66.627, South Korean won 11.1930. The Brazilian real 320.52, inflation was down sharply there. Egyptian pound 887.95, but the black market rate is above 14. South African rand softening up here 13.8956, but a lot of people getting bullish about the South African rand. Sterling is the world's second worst performing currency against the dollar this year, behind only the Nigerian naira. Dollar yen, take a look at this 5-day chart. It looks like we're going to push through 104 again. And commodity markets, gold, let's take a look at that 1260 area. I think that's going down to 1200. And oil, a big move, hit a one-year high. US crude oil, $51.64. Brent hit 53, got I think at 53.99. This was on the back of news that Russia says it's ready to join the OPEC output deal, and also on the back of the Saudi oil minister talking about $60 being in sight. Let's take a look at what happens around here, but bear in mind it's normally a strong session Tuesday and into Wednesday. I think we can get as high as 55, but I think there's a lot of supply on the sidelines just waiting to be unloaded. Let's move on to sub-Saharan Africa. Angela Merkel has pledged help for Mali during her Africa trip. She's pledging to support Niger to fight human traffickers and militants. saying that she's under intense political pressure at home for allowing nearly 1 million migrants into Germany last year, on the second leg of a 3-country African tour that started in Mali and will finish in Ethiopia. She admitted after meeting Niger's President Mamadou Issoufou that her goal of stabilizing African countries by creating better economic conditions, thereby tackling one of the root causes of migration, could only be reached in the long term. But this cannot be an excuse for not trying to achieve short-term success, she said. She's also using a drone base in Niamey, and that's Drone Central. Put up a photograph of her touring Africa. South African all shares up 1.94% this year. I was talking about the Rand. A lot of people are getting bullish. Bloomberg have picked up on that. The Rand is on the verge of bucking a 5-year losing trend. Instead of holding a trajectory that's seen it lose more than 50% of its value against the dollar since 2011, South Africa's currency may be about to end a pattern of annual declines, according to Informa Global Markets, which analyzes technical trends. The trend line is under attack, said Kamran Sheikh. We have not seen any significant rebound from the recent lows near the trend line. Basically, we're witnessing a correction of the entire 2011-2016 bull run for the dollar against the Rand. So we have ample room for further downside. Take a look at the chart they've posted and they're not wrong. Junk rate concern deters Johannesburg from foreign debt, just like the photograph of the city. Nigeria's banking industry is experiencing a full-blown financial crisis as failed fiscal and monetary policies lead to a credit crunch. Unity Bank, Sky Bank are close to being insolvent, while lenders FBN Holdings and Sterling PLC will need a dilutive capital hike. This is analysts at Dubai-based house. Our asset test reveals 7 undercapitalized banks with a deficit of as much as 1 trillion naira, which is $3.2 billion. 5 largest lenders, which together hold 57% of the country's banking assets, are able to absorb all losses under our severe stress scenario, says Moody's, saying that Guaranteed Trust Bank showed the greatest resilience. The Nigeria all shares down 2.5% this year. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index down 11.38% this year. Bob Diamond's misadventures in Africa is a Bloomberg article. The ex-Barclays boss went looking for redemption. It hasn't gone well. Just wait, he says. This isn't 5-minute rice. Bob Diamond is shifting restlessly on the sofa, his Brioni jacket draped behind him. He's in his corner office high up in the Seagram building, a modernist icon on Park Avenue in Manhattan. He faces one of Takashi's Murakami's smiley face flower motifs, which perfectly captures the former Barclays' boss' signature optimism. He's needed plenty of that in recent years as he's tried to build a banking empire across sub-Saharan Africa. That daunting experience can be summed up by another eye-catching work of art, which is hanging in the reception area, Pamela Rosenkrantz metallic emergency blanket. During an interview that lasts more than an hour, Bob Diamond acknowledges the challenges the company founded Atlas Mara has faced amid Africa's weakening economies, and bemoans its share price, which has tumbled 68% since it went public in December 2013. No matter. His defense is a work of performance art, frequently leaping to his feet, grabbing a golf club or a wad of bills from his wallet. He's theatrically dismissive of past failings and resolute about a future that will prove him right. He insists he and Atlas Mara are just getting started. This isn't 5-minute rice. John Vitale says the company is looking to expand in Nigeria, enter Kenya, and eventually have operations in 12 to 15 African markets. The problem was his choice of partners, really, I think. Imperial bosses operated ghost accounts. This is the first time that Imperial Bank directors have been directly linked to the mega theft, which has all along been attributed to Mr. Jan Mohammed, who died rather conveniently. Imperial Bank's principal shareholder and chairman, Al-Nashir Popat, used ghost accounts to move depositor funds that were then used to pay his foreign currency loans. Newly released information on insider dealings that led to the lender's collapse shows. FTI Consulting, the US firm that conducted a forensic audit on the bank, says Mr. Poppet and his co-directors were direct beneficiaries of the scandal. That was unearthed upon the sudden death last year of former Imperial Bank Managing Director Abdul Malik Jan Mohammed. Pretty hard-hitting stuff, I must say. Nairobi All Shares down 5.18% this year. Nairobi NSE 20 down 19.35% this year. Interesting detail about land prices around Nairobi. Juja, Ruiru, Limuru land prices in sharp rise on mega projects. Haskin South Property Index from the third quarter of 2016 shows the price of an acre of land in Juja has gone up 43.1% over the past 1 year. Ruiru 42.9% and Limuru 34.9%. Interesting, and that continues to be an outperformer, really. I think that's really a consequence of urbanization. I was in Warsaw a while ago and I asked them, what's the population? They told me, it's about 2 million, it hasn't changed since the Second World War. And I said, well, just go and look at what's happening in big African cities. They're growing at that sort of amount per year. Once again, thank you for stopping by. I am deeply grateful.